Greetings, everyone. This is Pato Banton, aka Brother Friend, and I'm really happy to be here today to give a presentation at this Africa Urantiathon 2025. My presentation today will be the new religion that Jesus created, the religion of the Spirit. So I'd like to start with talking about Jesus's religious organization, or how Jesus organized his followers on this new journey with this new gospel. So let's take a look at this first, okay? In paper 138, Training the Kingdom's Messengers, we see that after training the apostles for almost a whole year, the first thing Jesus does before starting his public ministry is to organize the 12 apostles. So here it is. We can see that every one of the apostles had a responsibility. Some of them had more than one responsibility. But from this chart, we can see all of the apostles had a responsibility to each other. Andrew was the chairman, Peter, James, and John were Jesus's personal companions, and so on and so on. You can pause this later and take a look to go through these later on. Continuance of Jesus's organization, we see that in paper 163, the ordination of the 70 at Magadan, we see that by the end of Jesus's third preaching tour, he had the 12 male apostles, 62 female members in the women's evangelistic corps, and 150 true and tried disciples, from whom Jesus selected and ordained 70 teachers, sending them out to proclaim the gospel of the kingdom, with Abner as their leader. The Urantia book says, the next morning Abner sent them into all the cities of Galilee, Samaria, and Judea, and these 35 couples went forth preaching and teaching for about 6 weeks. So here we can see very clearly that, Jesus had ordained his 12 apostles. Not only the ordination, he also consecrated them as well. He's now ordained another 70 teachers. He's got the women's corps, which has grown from 10 to 12, and now we see that there's 62 females in that corps, as well as disciples. So it's a pretty well organized group that Jesus has, who's following him and going out spreading the good news. And this is very interesting because I've noticed that a lot of people within the Urantia movement kind of want to stay away from being organized or, creating groups that are actively out there working together as groups, and with leadership. And I think that this is a good lesson to see that, the women's corps had leadership, the 70 teachers had Abner as their leader, the apostles had Andrew as their leader. So leadership seems to be something that Jesus was very, very much into. Moving on. An open break. On the same day that the 70 new ordained evangelists made ready to embark on their teaching mission, Jesus told them, "Make clear to all faithful believers that the time for an open break with the religious leaders of the Jews at Jerusalem has now come." At this stage of Jesus's public ministry, he had been banned from teaching in all the Jewish synagogues. The Pharisees and Sadducees had spies following Jesus everywhere, disturbing his teaching of the multitudes in an effort to entrap him, while the Jerusalem Sanhedrin had declared open warfare on Jesus and his apostles and decided that he should be charged with blasphemy, arrested, and be put to death. But Jesus had decided to stop running and was now heading back towards Jerusalem to set the stage for the final drama of his earth life. The Urantia book says, the issues of battle are clearly drawn as the master and his associates prepare to begin the proclamation of a new religion, the religion of the Spirit of the living God who dwells in the minds of all men and women. So here you have it. Jesus was teaching as a Jew in the synagogues, and the Jewish religious leaders decided that they no longer wanted Jesus to teach because of many different reasons, as we know. And so they decided that they were going to get him arrested and killed, and blocked him from teaching in all the synagogues. And so Jesus told everyone it's time for an open break. We're not going to be mingling or pretending to be a part of, the Jewish religion, the Jewish faith anymore. It's time for open break, and we're now ready to proclaim a new religion, the religion of the Spirit. Let's move on. Said Jesus, here is occurring the inevitable clash between a new and living religion of the Spirit and the older religion of ceremony, tradition, and authority. And now are we about to enter upon a deadly conflict with such a religion, since we will so shortly begin the bold proclamation of a new religion, a religion which is not a religion in the present day meaning of that word, a religion that makes its chief appeal to the divine Spirit of my Father, which resides in the mind of men and women, a religion which shall derive its authority from the fruits of its acceptance that will so certainly appear in the personal experience of all who really and truly become believers in the truths of this higher spiritual communion. Jesus enjoined the positive doing of that which his new religion required of those who accepted it. He did not teach that the essence of his religion consisted in social service, but rather that social service was one of the certain effects of the possession of the Spirit of true religion. So not only is Jesus proclaiming a new religion, the religion of the Spirit, the Urantia book clearly states that this is also the spirit of true religion. And that this religion is not the outward religion that we're used to, the institutional religions, the buildings and all of the garments and robes of the religious leaders and all of the other traditions attached to these religions. But this is a religion that is based on its acceptance within the human mind. It's based on the relationship that the individual has with God, and that the fruits of its acceptance will be seen in the works that you're doing. Not that the works come first, but that the fruits of who you are becoming spiritually will definitely be forthcoming in your desire to be of service to your brothers and sisters in whatever capacity you are able to serve. Jesus made it clear that the great difference between the religion of the mind and the religion of the Spirit is that while the former is upheld by ecclesiastical authority, the latter is wholly based on human experience. The religion of the Spirit means effort, struggle, conflict, faith, determination, love, loyalty, and progress. The religion of the mind, the theology of authority, requires little or none of these exertions from its formal believers. Now, I just want to stop there for a second, because the new trend nowadays is to say, I'm spiritual, not religious, by a lot of young people who don't want to get involved with any, so-called religious organizations. But sometimes they miss the point of becoming truly spiritual. And it just becomes a slogan that I'm spiritual, not religious, which means basically I'm spiritually free, which is beautiful. But when you start to deep dive into your spiritual journey, the Urantia book makes it very, very clear that the religion of the spirit means effort, struggle, conflict, faith, determination, love, loyalty, and progress. And these are not easy acquirements. This takes work. It's making it very clear to us that stepping away from authoritarian religion is not an easy journey. It takes work, determination, and dedication. So if your religious journey is easy, you might want to ask yourself why. Yeah. So moving on. The religions of authority require of men uniformity in belief, but this is impossible of realizing in the present state of the world. The religion of the spirit requires only unity of experience, uniformity of destiny, making full allowance for diversity of belief. Now, that may be a hard pill to swallow for a lot of people, that, you can have a spiritual family and that they don't all have to believe the same thing. That we can be spiritual and have this fifth epochal revelation as our truth, but also embrace our brothers and sisters who are also spiritual, but find their highest level of understanding from somewhere else. And that's what we call unity, not uniformity. And sometimes we can tend to distance ourselves from people that don't believe like us. But if those people are spiritual and all embracing and loving, then we can probably learn from them by joining spiritually with them and becoming spiritual brothers and sisters. Moving on. The religion of the spirit leaves you forever free to follow the truth wherever the leadings of the spirit may take you. And who can judge? Perhaps this spirit may have something to impart to this generation, which other generations have refused to hear. Human unity and mortal brotherhood can be achieved only by and through the super endowment of the religion of the spirit. So there's two things. Firstly, past generations have had a certain level of truth. But this generation and preceding generations may have different levels of truth based on the advancement of each generation. So the truth is never stagnant. And we shouldn't ever look at the past generation as being the only generation that are supposed to follow Christ and obey Christ's commandments and be out there sharing the good news. Every generation has to embrace the truth as it's revealed to them via the spirit of truth, and then go forth in service based on their abilities and their understanding of that truth. And this also tells us that human unity and mortal brotherhood can be achieved only by the super endowment of the religion of the spirit. So there's no other way for this unity and this brotherhood all over the planet unless it's the religion of the spirit. The big mistake on the day of Pentecost. After the crucifixion and resurrection of Jesus, he made 19 separate appearances in visible form to his believers on earth, reminding them over and over again to simply go forth proclaiming, "This is the kingdom of heaven. God is your Father, and you are his sons and daughters. And this good news, if you wholeheartedly believe it, is your eternal salvation. Go then into all the world telling the good news to all creatures of every race, tribe, and nation." Sounds very simple, right? But they forgot this simple message. Sometimes the truth is too simple and we want to complicate it. But this message is very simple. God is your Father, you're his sons and daughters. And if you believe this, you're in the kingdom of heaven. So simple. The Urantia book states, these men had been trained and instructed that the gospel which they should preach was the fatherhood of God and the sonship of man. But at just this moment of spiritual ecstasy and personal triumph, the best tidings, the greatest news these men could think of was the fact of the risen Master. And so they went forth endowed with power from on high, preaching glad tidings to the people, even salvation through Jesus. But they unintentionally stumbled into the error of substituting some of the facts associated with the gospel for the gospel message itself. Peter unwittingly led off in this mistake, and others followed after him on down to Paul, the Apostle Paul, who created a new religion, Christianity, out of the new version of the good news that Peter had created. It's amazing how quickly an error can be made to become fact, and then people just follow this error until something new is created, which is so distant from what the original message of our Master was. And when all of this is taken into consideration, it is not difficult to understand how these men came to preach a new gospel about Jesus in the place of their former message of the fatherhood of God and the brotherhood of men. The gospel of the kingdom is the fact of the fatherhood of God, coupled with the resultant truth of the fraternity of all humanity. Christianity, as it developed from that day, is the fact of God as the Father of the Lord Jesus Christ, in association with the experience of believer fellowship with the risen and glorified Christ. Now, do you see these two philosophies are very close, but the great difference is with Christianity's good news, it only embraces Christians as the children of God. With the original gospel that Jesus presented to the world, every single man, woman, and child on the planet are God's children. They simply need to hear that news and embrace it and be accepted into the kingdom of heaven. And we can even have different beliefs, but the main thing is that we have faith that we are a child of God. So, could it be time to reestablish the Master's mission? I think so. Let me say this again. I think it's time for us to reestablish the Master's mission. We have to share with our brethren, our sistren, in our study groups, in our daily walk, these fundamental truths that Jesus wanted the world to know 2,000 years ago. The kingdom of heaven consists in these three essentials. First, recognition of the fact of the sovereignty of God. Second, belief in the truth that you are a child of God. And third, faith in the effectiveness of the supreme human desire to do the will of God, to be like God. And this is the good news of the gospel, that by faith, every mortal may have all these essentials of salvation. So there's a third factor. First, we believe that God is real through faith. Second, we believe that and have faith that we are a child of God. And then third is the requirement that we desire to do the will of God, that we start to try to be like God, to become godly. There's a part in the Urantiathon book where Jesus says that his followers must be free from guilt. They must become clean, enter the kingdom, become clean, and then remain clean, and refuse to harbor feelings of guilt. And the only way you can be free from guilt is not to do anything that you feel is not right, which means that you're living a righteous life. And we may not be able to live a divinely perfect life, but we can live a humanly perfect life based on the level of requirements that our adjuster uniquely places upon us in our life and tries to guide us towards that goal of living a clean and upright life while still living in the flesh. The next section says, the gospel of the kingdom must be proclaimed to all the world, to both Jew and Gentile, to rich and poor, to free and bond, to male and female, even to the little children. And as you can see, it says here, the gospel of the kingdom must be proclaimed. Now, who is going to proclaim Jesus' gospel when it's not clearly indicated in any of the religions on this planet? It's not clearly indicated in any religious book on the planet what Jesus' true gospel message was. Now, with the fifth epochal revelation in the Urantia book, it's been repeated over and over and over again. Also, seek ye first the kingdom of God and his righteousness. You know, it's been repeated in different ways and in the same way multiple times. But who's going to do this? I think the listeners to this presentation and the readers of the Urantia book, wherever they are in the world, and anyone that has been exposed to this information has an obligation and a duty to our master and to themselves and to the world to share this good news in whatever capacity you have, whether it's going out proclaiming the good news to your friends and family and strangers that you meet along the way, whether it's using your social media, whether it's using your occupation, with whatever that occupation is, by sharing the good news using the tools at your disposal. But we have a duty to go out there and let the world know, the whole world, rich, poor, Jew, Gentile, free bond, male, female, even the children should not be kept away from hearing this great news that they are a child of God. And all we have to do is live according to the will of God, have faith in God, and let our light shine. How simple is that, and how beautiful is that? Number 7, section 7, the future. The Urantia book says, Christianity is indeed done a great service for this world. But what is now most needed is Jesus. The world needs to see Jesus living again on earth in the experience of spirit-born mortals who effectively reveal the Master to all men and women. Are you spirit-born? Have you stepped into the kingdom of heaven by embracing that God is your Father and you are a child of God? Is it your wholehearted desire to do the will of God? If that's the case, then you have a role to play in allowing the mind of Jesus to be in you and allowing yourself to become an example of the highest concept of Jesus' life that you understand. And this way, people will be able to see your good works and glorify Christ, along with glorifying our Father who is in heaven. The Urantia book continues to say, it is futile to talk about a revival of primitive Christianity. You must go forward from where you find yourselves. Modern culture must become spiritually baptized with a new revelation of Jesus' life and illuminated with a new understanding of his gospel of eternal salvation. So, not only do we need to go out and spread this good news, the original gospel that Jesus gave us, we also need to let the world know about Jesus' life. You know, that can be found in the Urantia book. That can be found in secondary works done by Urantia book readers. But whatever tools we use, Jesus' life needs to be presented to the world. And the world needs to be illuminated with a new understanding of Jesus' gospel of eternal salvation. So we need to get creative and use the tools that are available to us to get this message and the life of Jesus out to the world. And lastly, here it says, the true church, the Jesus brotherhood, is invisible, spiritual, and is characterized by unity, not necessarily by uniformity. So that's just reestablishing what I had read earlier and spoke about earlier, that, it's really about unity, not so much everybody doing the same thing and saying the same thing and, walking down the same path. But, if we're united in spirit, that is the true experience. And that the Jesus brotherhood is invisible, the true church. Sometimes you can meet people and you've never met them before, and you just make a connection, a spiritual connection, and immediately you and that person are in church. You're talking about God. You may pray together. You may give thanks together, and it's just beautiful when that happens. And the Spirit, they say the Spirit brings us together with other like-minded spiritual people too. And our celestial family also play a role in bringing us together. The religion of Jesus is a new gospel of faith to be proclaimed to struggling humanity. This new religion is founded on faith, hope, and love. A new and fuller revelation of the religion of Jesus is destined to conquer an empire of materialistic secularism and to overthrow a world sway of mechanistic naturalism. Urantia is now quivering on the very brink of one of its most amazing and enthralling epochs of social readjustment, moral quickening, and spiritual enlightenment. Is that amazing that we're on the brink? Remember the Urantia book was released to us 70 years ago. Before we had social media and a lot of the tools we have today to communicate with each other around the world. And now we have them. Now we have the tools. I have a an app called WhatsApp where I communicate with people all over the world every day. I can call them for free. We can message each other. We can create groups. There's social media, where people are sharing ideas, sharing their truth, sharing their journey. There's so many different ways now that the world can communicate with each other as a brand new evolving society. It's so exciting. You can live in a neighborhood where you don't know anyone in a neighborhood, but you've got access to millions of people via your phone or your computer. And I can see that now, once the light starts to be expounded from these newly spiritually illuminated people who have this great gospel and the inspiration of the spirit of truth and our mother spirit and our indwelling spirit, once they get activated, great things are going to happen on this planet. The teachers of this new religion are now equipped with spiritual weapons. They are to go out to conquer the world with unfailing forgiveness, matchless goodwill, and abounding love. They are equipped to overcome evil with good, to vanquish hate by love, to destroy fear with a courageous and living faith in truth. So here we go. We're on the front line, and it's time. We've got the tools. We've got the tools. No one can say they don't have the tools. And they say practice makes perfect. So don't be afraid to make mistakes when you go out into the world to share this good news. It's okay to make mistakes. Every mistake you make is another tool in your toolkit of wisdom. So yeah, get out there, be bold, be brave, and let your light shine. The future of Urantia will doubtless be characterized by the appearance of teachers of religious truth, the fatherhood of God, and the fraternity of all creatures. But it is to be hoped that the ardent and sincere efforts of these future prophets will be directed less toward the strengthening of interreligious barriers and more toward the augmentation of the religious brotherhood of spiritual worship among the many followers of the differing intellectual theologies. That was a mouthful, but basically it's saying that new teachers are going to emerge. They already are emerging all over the world, and the new teachers of this religious truth who are teaching about the fatherhood of God and the fraternity of all creatures. The hope is that they don't go out saying, we have a new religion and it's called this or it's called that, and we want everybody to belong to this or to belong to that. It's saying that, and that would be strengthening interreligious barriers, because that's a barrier to people who are simply saying, I'm spiritual, not religious. And it's saying what is hoped is that these religious leaders and teachers will go out and include everybody, that they will lean more towards the augmentation of the religious brotherhood of spiritual worship. That means that we want to bring everybody together to worship God from among the many followers of the different intellectual theologies. So again, these are people who don't believe the same thing, but we can come together as family. One of my examples is that I use my occupation as a musician to spread the good news. And many times after my concerts, I invite the audience, who is made up of Christians, Buddhists, Jews, Rastas, Christians, atheists, you name it, pagans, you name it. And I invite them to come and join me in a prayer circle after the show if they want to give thanks to the Almighty. And we have big prayer circles, small prayer circles. It's amazing when we go outside and we hold hands, and you'll see people saying, I can't believe I'm holding hands with someone who is from a different religion, and we're praying together. And you'll see people crying, laughing with joy. And what's funny is that sometimes after the show, some of the people who have been drinking at the bar, they still come and join us in the prayer circle. So even though they're a bit tipsy, and they apologize and say, oh, I didn't know we was going to pray, I was having a good time, we say that's okay. It's mind over matter. So let's go into our mind and let's give thanks to God and pray together. And it's just a beautiful experience, and it elevates a lot of people. And I always tell people, it doesn't matter what religion you have. For me, religions are like a pair of shoes for a baby. You're supposed to outgrow them, and move into being spiritual. And then that's where we all meet. We can take the lessons from whatever religion we started with, but once we've outgrown our religion, we become spiritual, and then the spirit of truth will teach us and lead us into all truth. So, 2 tips that I'd like to share while I was preparing this presentation. Number 1, it says, share the good news first. This is Jesus saying, go then, teaching and preaching the kingdom. And when you have a man or woman safely and securely within the kingdom, then is the time when such a one shall come to you with inquiries to impart instruction having to do with the progressive advancements of the soul within the divine kingdom. And how many of us, myself included, after finding the Urantia book, felt that the most important thing that we could do was to run out and tell everybody about the Urantia book? Sometimes scaring people, sometimes people saying that we're mad, or we've got a religious book that has been written by the devil. All these negative things people say because they wasn't really prepared to receive this fifth epochal revelation that is so mind-blowing. But we are taught that the most important thing, the Urantia book says, even Jesus said, that there is one law to obey, that is to go forth spreading the good news. And it seems to be that when Jesus appeared to his apostles over and over again and kept repeating the same message to go forth spreading the good news, it seems that that is the priority, that we should spread this gospel first. And it can be spread to anybody. It doesn't matter what religion they have. It doesn't matter if they are intellectual or they can't even put 10 words together in a sentence. The good news can be received by everyone, even little children. And then once we've shared the good news with them, and they are inquisitive, and they want to know, where are you getting your boldness from? Where are you getting your spiritual grace from? Where are you getting your knowledge from? That's when you can bring them into more truth. Have faith in future progress. Keep planting seeds. Jesus said, and no matter what blunders your fellow men make in their world management of today, in an age to come, the gospel I declare to you will rule this very world. So don't worry about it. The world right now looks negative. There's wars, rumors of wars. There's hunger, poverty. There's so many people dying unnecessarily. We're seeing 3 genocides taking place at the same time in real time. And it's really disheartening. But let's just keep planting seeds. Let's stay positive, never give in, and have faith that in Jesus's words, that his gospel will rule this very world. I believe it. In conclusion, I would like to point out that young people are now increasingly declaring, I'm spiritual, not religious. Yes, this generation of youth are claiming their spiritual liberty. But as they forsake the evolutionary religions of fear, who will be there to share the revelatory religion of love? It seems the stage is set for the receptivity of Jesus' new religion of the Spirit, a religion which is not a religion in the present day meaning of that word. And let us pray for the courage to become active evangels and for the wisdom to share Jesus' all-embracing, simple gospel message of good news, that we are all God's children, brothers and sisters. First, before we discourse on the deeper meanings and new ideologies contained in the fifth epochal revelation to mankind. So, what is your religion? As we see here, Jesus created a new religion called the religion of the Spirit. So some people could say that my religion is the religion of the Spirit. Some people could just say, I'm spiritual. Some people say, I'm a Urantian. Some people say, I'm a Jesusonian. What do you call your religion? Does it have a name? Or does it remain with no name? But regardless of what name you give to it, all of us live a religious life. If you're praying, meditating, being of service, if you're studying the truth and growing in the knowledge of the truth, all of these activities are a part of spiritual living. Or as my Rasta brethren would say, spiritual liberty. But let's see what it says about anyone that has a religion. If something has become a religion in your experience, it is self-evident that you already have become an active evangel of that religion, since you deem the supreme concept of your religion as being worthy of the worship of all mankind, all universe intelligences. If you are not a positive and missionary evangel of your religion, you are self-deceived in what you call a religion is only a traditional belief or mere system of intellectual philosophy. Now, these words are from Rodan of Alexandria, who had an amazing philosophy on the art of living. And he basically said that if you have a religion, you should become an active evangel. It's natural. And if you're not an active evangel going out there sharing the good news, then what are you doing? You've got a belief, but you're not putting that belief into action. You're a follower of Christ, but you're not becoming a disciple or an apostle or a messenger or a teacher or any of the other roles that we can play in the establishment of the kingdom of heaven on earth. So don't be what do they call it? A desktop religionist, that you just are online being a religionist, or in your study groups being a religionist, but you're not in the world sharing this amazing truth that is in your possession. So yeah, for me personally, I say I am a spiritual person. I definitely believe that I am a Urantian because I read the Urantia book. I definitely practice the religion of the Spirit, whereas I embrace everyone, regardless of what they read or what they believe. I embrace everyone as a child of God, as my brothers and sisters. And I believe that we're all on our journey to paradise, to the mansion worlds. And on the mansion worlds is where we can wake up and sort out our differences of opinion. But until then, let's hold each other's hand and encourage each other to be the best versions of ourselves that we can be. So that concludes my presentation today. I hope you enjoyed it. So thank you, everybody. And to wrap up my presentation, I'd like to play my song, Destination Paradise.
Well, it's a revelation for the now generation. Destination, destiny, my destination. Inquisitive as I am, I have always had so many questions. Even as a little youth, I'd be digging up the roots to find a little grain of truth. In my frustration, I would search the synagogue, the mosque, even the temple and the church. And even though some truth would be found in everyone, so could the overwhelming ego of a man. Yeah. Destination, destiny, my destination is paradise, 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 yeah. Persistent as I am, I never stop searching till I find a resolution. But no matter how I try, the books of yesteryear could never give me a solution. Then one bright day in my dismay, I went down on my knees and prayed, Father, please show me a sign for peace of mind, and so that through you I can find my destination. Destiny, yeah. My destination is paradise, 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 yeah. I keep on trotting on and on. I'm searching, searching. Though truly grateful, yes I am. And I thank you, Jah, for everything you've done. I thank you for the miracles you've shown me, for the Mother Spirit and Christ Michael, your son. And yes, I found that big blue book, Urantiathon. And when I took a little look, revelation. Now I'm as happy as can be, 'cause I found my truth and the truth has set me free, yeah. Destination, destiny, yeah. My destination is paradise, 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 yeah. Well, it's a revelation for the now generation.